And so Arc, like I said, it's just a small binary, right? It's this. At the moment it's like 8 and almost 9 megs, which bothers me because I haven't really changed things. I just updated things that it depends on, and it gained like a gig and a half, a meg and a half. So it's annoying. But anyway, one day I'll clean it up. So by default, right, you don't have anything set up. You're just going to launch the app. And this is going to give you a GUI version that just doesn't have anything, like it doesn't know any workspaces. So workspace is a concept that I borrowed the name from Perforce, and it basically means this is my file, this is my working directory, right? So it's where I'm going to put the stuff, and I'm going to sync with the server, right? I'm going to work from this folder. So the first thing we're going to do is, okay, we're going to create one, and we need a path for it, right? Where we want to work from. And then Arc allows you to do something that is called a built-in server. So a built-in server is just a server, because Arc works in this centralized mode. It has client-server architecture, right? And I decided to make them just always work this way. So whenever you use the built-in server, what it does is it's going to create a server inside your workspace. And then when you launch the GUI, if it sees that there's a built-in server, it launches it, and then you connect, right? So it just makes it easier for people that want to work by themselves, because they just have to launch the GUI that handles everything. You don't need to launch separately the server. You can still do it. And especially if you're working with more people, you'll want to do this, because otherwise when you close your editor, you don't have access, right? But it's basically, so for now, we're just going to create that. So it has a port, right? Because again, it's a server, it's a full-fledged server. And you define your email, right? Which eventually will have more features tied to this with password resetting and whatever. I still didn't do this kind of stuff. But anyway, at the moment, everything is tied to this email as a user. So when you create, so let me open here the folder. So this is a clean folder. So when I'm going to create, a few things are going to happen. Because it's a built-in server, it's going to create a server in this workspace. And it's also going to create an Arc folder, which is basically like the Git folder, right? Where all the metadata, all the cache stuff, everything's going to go there. So this is at the moment what happens. The first time we do it, we give it a little pause, because the server creation, as you can see here, it's already there created. The server creation also sets up SSL certificates and whatever, so you don't have to worry about this. Like you don't have to, in order to, now I have to go somewhere else to do a certificate. It just does it. You can also create your own and replace them, that's fine, but by default it just creates one for you. And because I'm the first person to connect, and it's going to allow me to be the admin, so it's going to accept whoever connects first as the user. So at the moment I connected to the server, I have the server running. You have here, I need to do some changes here, sorry. Here we go. So you have here the view, and for now, let's just remove this. I'll explain in a second. So for now, you have the base view of when you open the workspace. You don't have anything. By default, here at top, you have the project. It creates, since you're the first person connecting to the project, it creates a project for you, which is basically a repository, right, in Git, and a default branch, with by default Arc just calls it dev, right? So it created project Sigma and branch dev. Here, this view is the files. It's collapsed, but you can open it here. So this is what is being added to your, or what's part of your workspace that is or being tracked, right? So things that are ignored would not be visible here. So for example, that's why you don't see the Arc and the Arc server. It has a changes panel. Whenever you have changes, things are going to appear here, the files are going to appear here, and it allows you to create change lists, basically, which are grouping of changes, right? So you can move. So the way Arc works is kind of like Perforce. So you kind of track files, you don't track diffs, right? When you have Git, what happens is that, you know, a little change is going to be something that then you stage, and you can, for example, stage two parts of a file in different commits, right? You can keep some parts off, and then you just stage part of the file change, commit that, and then, stage the other part and commit it separately. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you can do it like, if you can do 2 commits changing the same file.
Yeah, because what you're basically saying, you're not really working on files, you're working on diffs of files, right?
Yeah.
And Arc doesn't work like this, because the idea of Arc is just to be simple. So you have a file that has different things, so it's just how Perforce works. It's easier for people to reason about it this way, right? And then here you have the history. So these are the things that were committed. And here is the change list details. It just shows you like the history, the details of each history entry. Here we have some stats. We can just dock them here so you can see it. And so by default, something that it also creates is that arc ignore file. So this is basically to help you have some same defaults. I reverted it, but if you want to create, you can just create a file that's called .arc_ignore, and it works like get ignore and p4 ignore. It's just a file where you put rules of things that need to be ignored. But it also has this entry up top, and you can just go, okay, create an arc ignore. The ignore is here. If we double click on it, this is kind of explaining how it works, right? This is like comments. And then here it's like, ignoring certain patterns. So for example, if you're using Unreal, it has already some stuff for you, or Unity. And if, let's say, you don't use Unreal, you can even come here and just remove a bunch of entries. You can just clean it up, but it's just helpful to have a useful defaults. So now that I have a change, right? So this what basically did was it created a file. Arc detects that there's a new file in the file system, marked it as change. When I hover here the file, I can see that it doesn't have an ID yet, right? So this is a new file. Arc doesn't know about this file yet. It also knows this is something coming in this new feature, in this new version, that is the content is text. In this new version, I'm already doing stuff to determine is a file binary or is it text. So now when I'm going to commit, so I right click on this change list. When I'm going to do commit, it asks me like for a little message, yeah. When I commit, it goes to the server and it's there, right? So far so good.
So far, so good.
So let's say that now we have another person working. Yeah. So let's add here Łukasz.
Maybe not so far, so good. I have a couple of questions. No, but like, for example, you mentioned that it is detects content type. Is this based on extension?
This is based on, the content type is based on reading the file. So it listens on OS calls that will tell you if there's changes in the OS. When it sees that there's changes in the OS, it goes through these files, opens them up, hashes the whole content of the file, right? And at the time that it's doing this, it's also trying to see if you have any zeros on the file. If you have any zeros on the file, then it means that it's a binary.
What? Why?
So
why zeros?
Because in text you cannot have zeros, right? If 0 is like null, so you cannot,
okay.
Maybe I could do something more smarter than this, because, in theory you can have a binary file without zeros, I guess, but it's just common that if you have binary, you're going to find a byte that is 0, right?
Okay.
Like you could do things that are more elaborate, but everything that you kind of try to do that is more elaborate, the more time it's going to take. So you need to think, does it make sense? A good example is like, do I care that I'm detecting if it's UTF-8? You may want to, but I'm not going down this road, because then you have to, see if the files, if all the bytes make sense in UTF-8. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So at the moment I just go, if this has zeros, it's binary. If it's not, then it's text, right?
Okay.
So yeah, it parses the file, and when you hover here the file, you're going to see that checksum. That checksum is basically the hash that it generated with the content of the file, right? So now let's say that we have somebody else that wants to connect, and the first thing we need to do is, like, the first guy was able to just connect because that's the way it's set up, but every other user you need to add them, right? So we'll just add a new email, and we'll add a normal user, right? But this has to do with permissions to do certain things.
Okay.
So we have now a new user, and now this guy can just go and select a new folder. He doesn't set the built-in server, right? Because he doesn't want to run a server. He wants to connect to one.
Yep. Now the server is authenticating the new user.
Yeah.
Like
so for example, if I go, let's say I write it wrong, yeah?
Yeah.
When I'm going to connect, the login fails, right? Because this user does not exist. So I need to go here into connections and make sure that my connection is, it's a user that exists. So when I connect, now because you don't have password, it just accepts whatever password you come in with. And now you're in. And you can see like already some differences, right? You can see that here it's dark on this side, and here it's light, it's like white. So this is telling you two things. The white means that so the text that is white means that you have this change list. Okay, the data of this change list is in your workspace. The white line around it, it's telling you what is the current change list you're on. And it's also the number shown here at the top, it says 1, right? So that's why this guy here doesn't have any line, because this guy doesn't have any content, right? It just has the .arc because we don't create the server. And it has here, it received the metadata that it has this commit, right? But you don't have the file. So you're still on version 0, on change list 0. You don't have anything yet, right? And you have this highlighted here that you have changes, right? And at the moment, the latest CL is 1, and it tells you that you're 1 behind. Okay. So when you go like get, now you got the thing, you have the stuff here. So far, so good?
Yep.
So this is like the base, let's say, of it, right? So I can just have files, push files, etc. So now we'll go into more interesting features that come from Arc. One of them is basically borrowed from Perforce, and it's the concept of shelf. So like I was telling you, a lot of times you want to work and you want to work fast. You don't want to create branches, right? You just want to do, and this happens a lot in games. You're working with somebody else and you want to share some files with them while not leaving your branch, because leaving branches is super expensive in games, because it's not that much the branch itself, right? The mechanism. It's because a lot of times, like when you move to another branch, you may need to rebuild light maps or whatever. So or shaders. So you'll have something that gets invalidated that needs to be rebuilt. So you can even be able to change branches fast, but then you're going to have to download gigs, or worse is when you have to rebuild gigs, because sometimes people don't put certain things there, right? It's just cached locally. So there's this concept of doing a shelf. So let's just open up this guy and let's add something here at the bottom, right? A new entry. Again, I saved the file. It automatically has the detecting that this has changes. So it has a new hash. By the way, we already have an ID for it because we committed it, right? And we have revision 1 of 1. It means that this file has a history of only one entry, right? It has been committed only once. And it was committed last on that change list 1. So I have changes here. Actually, there's a view here, an experimental thing that is not fully working yet, but it's this diff that just tells you, okay, you have this new thing added. So now let's say that I want to work with you. I want to send you something, but I don't want to commit. So I can do this, that is shelf. And shelf, what it is basically, and this is how Arc works. When you commit stuff, you don't actually commit stuff. What happens is you shelve stuff. Shelving is asking the server, hey, I want to upload a bunch of data. Give me a change list ID so that I can store it in that change list. The server, in this case, is going to tell me like, here's change list 2 because we just have change list 1. And then I'm going to push all the data there, like upload all the data. And if I then want to commit, the action is like an atomic action. Is very simple, fast to do, because you already have the data there. So committing is basically just changing the state of that change list and adding that change list to the history of committed change lists, if that makes sense.
Ah, okay.
Right?
So you're always shelving. but sometimes you're not making a commit.
Because also sometimes when you're shelving, things are not instant. So it may happen that you're going to commit, but in between the time that you started committing and the data gets uploaded to the server and the server starts processing your request and starts trying to commit it, right? It may be that somebody locked the file. So you can always have a late failure of commit. So what's going to happen is we shelve it, and then when you try to commit, it's like, oh, you can't because you don't have the lock. Okay, just keep the shelf, it's there. If I then get the lock, I can immediately push without re-uploading the data, right? The data is already in the server. So let's say I'm going to shelve this, and you can see a few things happen. One is, first of all, the history didn't change, right? Didn't commit anything. And now you have this working change list that has a header here that says CL2#1. So this means that this working change list has a change list. Maybe names are going to be a bit confusing for people that are used to it, but it has like, so the workspace change list is tied to a server change list with ID 2. And the #1 means that it's the revision 1 of this shelf, right?
Okay.
So this guy, for example, here doesn't have anything yet, right? Nothing appeared for him. But this person now can work on this shelf by simply, here you go to workspace go to, or just Control G. And now I'm going to select change list 2, get it. And this gives me this window, which has like the data of the change, and it has the option here to unshelve. When you unshelve, you now have a workspace change list also tied to that change list, to that shelf, and you got the data from it, right? So if I go here now and, right, you have the same data. So
Okay. Then why we wouldn't commit that? Can you remind me again? Because like you wouldn't, you did pretty much exactly the same as if you were to commit and somebody take it back. It's just that we didn't want this to be there on the trunk yet.
Yeah.
That's the only reason.
Yes. Because sometimes you're going to, especially when we're like with programmers, I think it happens a lot with, like if you're a UI programmer working with a UI designer, or if you are a programmer, like a gameplay programmer working with a technical artist, sometimes you need to iterate on things. So for example, they do some kind of hacky shader or whatever to get you moving. So it's not still the final version. They don't want to commit it yet for whatever reason. So they just want to give you work. It's the equivalent of putting some stuff in a floppy disk, sending you the floppy disk, and you getting it.
Yeah.
Right. And this is quite useful. And why is this so much better than, like, you can see this as lightweight branches, right? Because why is this so much better than doing branches? Because first of all, you're not getting further away from the timeline, right? You're still in the same timeline. You just have something on the side. Like if I now go get latest, I'm going to get the latest of that branch, right? Because I didn't switch to another branch. It also allows you to not have to force other people to change in order to accommodate for you. If I do a branch, and if I say like, I'm working on feature here, and now I need this technical artist to give me some stuff, you're actually imposing a big burden on him, because he's going to have to switch branches to be in your branch, do whatever he needs to and push it, right? And then switch back to his branch. And so he's potentially going to have to download and re-download gigs of data. He's potentially going to have to rebuild caches of shaders or whatever. Like, it's just, it's becoming like bureaucracy, right? It's burdening your way of working. And specifically, technical artists tend to be the kind of people that work with multiple people at the same time. So they're doing something for somebody, something for somebody else. And sometimes they just can't commit, or they don't want for some reason, right? And so this is very useful. I can just do a little snippet of code, send it to the server, it's there. I can even revert it, right? And it's still there in the server. I can later get it, right? So let's say I don't want, now I need to continue my work. I want to revert it. I can. It's there in the server. Somebody else can use it or redo it. And so this is where the similarity with Perforce ends. Because the way in Perforce, the way this works is, so I can do a shelf, somebody else can get my shelf. Now let's say that you update it, you do something, and I need to get it. In Perforce, what you need to do is move these changes to a new workspace change list, shelve that new workspace change list. So now you'd have the changes on change list free, and then I have to get change list free and unshelve it.
Okay.
So shelving is a cool concept that is just, somebody just shot themselves in the leg when they decided that you couldn't make this bidirectional. So Arc does this, for example, right? So if I go here and I just add something new, right? So let's say I just do this, I add a new entry. I have here, see, you have things. Oh, I forgot to mention this. Like, see how this is darkened here? Yeah. So this is to give you a hint, something that Perforce also doesn't tell you. Perforce, it's like the files are shelved, but you don't really know what if you have differences locally. And Arc gives you this visual cue. It's darkened. It means, and you see there in the tooltip, it says shelved. So this means that the file that you have locally is the file that is shelved. There's no local changes, right? And this is important because sometimes you may change things by mistake, and then you have a shelf that you think that has something, but because you maybe renamed the variable that was referenced in that file, it also changed that file, right? So you may have changes that may not be shelved. And so here, if you go to this guy, you'll see it's shelved, but it has local changes. You know what I mean? And this is very useful. So now let's say that I'm just going to shelve again, right? And this guy is now on version 2, hash 2. This guy is still on 2.1, but has this visual cue like the get latest that tells you basically you don't have the latest version. And if you hover here, it will tell you you're shelved, but you have remote changes.
Okay.
Right? And so, yeah, basically, I can just, update from latest. I can also open here the window and go through the different versions, right? If you're interested in that. But generally, people just tend to go for the latest. You know what I mean? So now if I'm going to unshelve latest, it's going to get latest. And now if I see the file, it's the same, right? And it's again dark because I don't have changes.
Okay. Now, on the right-hand side, can you now commit to this shelf and then get the changes on the left side? Like, because you mentioned it's bidirectional, right? Mm-hmm. So it works both ways.
Yeah. So I can shelve or I can commit it, right? So, so for example, if I just edit it here, so this is the version on the left, on the right. So I'm just going to put here, that we're going to ignore Łukasz. So
of course,
now this guy has changes, and I can just go here, shelve, right? By the way, disclosure I should have done at the start. This is a working version for the next release. If things break,
That's too far. That's too far. Too far in the demo.
So I'm going to shelve it. And this guy now has this identification here, right? And if you open here the window, you're going to see version 3 of free was pushed by Łukasz, was shelved by Łukasz. Like, I'm the one that owns this change list, but you push that version. If I go to version 2, it's me, right? Because it doesn't show if it's the same, only when it's different person. And so now I can just, unshelve it. And I can, so I have here now this is stuff that is working. That's why it's experimental. Like, it doesn't refresh properly. I need to select it to refresh.
It's, what if you have local changes and you unshelve stuff that has been modified? Like,
it should give you the conflict.
Okay.
Like, we can try now to see if that's working.
Let's do it.
So let's say, okay, so let's say that this guy wants to have this, right?
Yeah.
And here we're going to go, the one was Wookash 2, this is going to be Wookash 3, right?
Yeah.
So if this breaks, I'm going to go after it. No, so now I'm going to shelve this version. This guy doesn't have it, so now let's get latest. And you have here a symbol. right?
Okay.
And if you hover on the tooltip, you're going to see it's a conflict that needs to be resolved,
Okay.
right? Because you had changes, you're getting new changes, and now you have this conflict state. So the file is still your file. See, it's still Łukasz free here, but you have this state. And you have a few, I wanted to show you this later, but we can just go over it now. So you have these options to resolve conflicts, and you can just from here say, okay, I want to keep mine, or I want to get theirs, or I want manually, or this open window helps when you have a lot of them and you just want to do a bunch of them in a row. So let's just go with open window. By the way, this is something that drives me a bit insane in Git, is that sometimes ours is ours, but sometimes ours is not ours.
Because if you git merge and git rebase, it's swapped. Because now, like what you consider ours is not ours in rebase,
Yeah.
in merge. It's like if you were to draw it, it would make sense, but it's
Sure.
obviously absolutely confusing.
That's the thing, right? When I'm working, I don't want to have that mental load of like, oh wait, because I did this, now I'm in that. You know, you don't want to do that. Anyway, good tools, guys, good tools. So when I go open the window, it's going to give me this this thing here. You'd have all the entries, and now here you can just go, for example, keep hours, right? Which basically now you have the same things that you had. You can then override it, so you can go to theirs, and you know it just warns you because you already resolved it. By the way, when you resolve it, it has this check mark, right? And it's darkened here in this window. So now if I go here, you'll see it has Łukasz 2.
Yeah.
And you can always go back to hours, right? So if I go back hours, Łukasz free, right? And I can just go manual. And manual will just launch a window to solve it. I have Beyond Compare installed. Like there's a few things that I try to populate in the preferences for you so that it's just easier that, you know, you double click and it opens and stuff like this. So it gives you this guy, right? And it's giving you here that there's the base version, right? You have theirs, that is 2, right? Which is correct, it's 2. And you have ours, that is free, right?
Yeah.
And here you would select what you want to do. Here I'm just going to go no. And then it actually tells you like if you leave the app in a bad way. But even if you saved something, let's say that you change it, you can always go here and discard it, right? And revert back to what it was. So here, let's just say that we want theirs, right? So we're going to get the Łukasz free. And now we can just, for example, commit and hopefully nothing breaks. And great. This got committed. There's a new change list here. Number 2, I'm on this current because I just committed and there's no change list between the last one I was and the one I committed. So this means that I can just be on the next one, right? And it says here I'm on 2. On the history on this side, you're not, right? You just got that 2 was committed. And you have this notification that you can get latest. And now you have 2 options. Like one is you can just revert things here and delete this workspace. But since this is the thing that we have here, if I go get latest, it's going to have no changes locally. So it just clears it for you, right? And yeah, basically we have this and we can also select the file and we can go, you know, there's no differences with revision 2 of the file. And there's, because we have the revision 2 and you can also diff with the previous version, right?
Yeah.
So at the moment, all makes sense so far?
Yes.
Okay. So now let's say that I'm going to add here a file, right? And I'm going to add something to it. And so I have here a file and I'm going to commit, right? This guy doesn't have it, right? This one has it. It moves to version 3. Everything makes sense. Let's say that here now I want to edit this file. So this is tied what I said before, right? So let's say that, you know what? See, you see my scroll wheel going up and down? God damn it. So let's say that actually, you know, Łukasz 3 was too little. It should be Łukasz 4. So when I'm going to commit this now,
we're entering Git conflict area.
Yes. So see what happened here is this guy is the same, right? There's just new content that he didn't receive, the Łukasz. This one here, you're still in change list 2. However, because you just committed this data, you also have the data of 4 of CL4. And here at the top, you're on 2. This is your current change list. If you ask, like, what's my current change list? It's 2 plus 4. Right? So this allows you to keep iterating and working without being forced to get latest, potentially recompiling things and whatever, right? It's just very useful when you're working day to day in games, right?
Wait, so far so good. So far it doesn't good, not good. You've been on 2. You had like a notification that there is 3.
Mm-hmm.
Then you created something. And then locally you still have 4. Like you have the changes from the 4, right? Number 4.
Yes, because it's a file that I pushed, right? So if I go here, the history, see, I have the 4 version with no differences. And these were on CL2 and CL1.
Yes. So you skipped 3.
Yes. And that's fine.
Okay, I need to mentally process this. My kid brain is just not allowing this to happen.
Why is it fine? Imagine that you're working on the simplest example. You're working on code, right? Or let's say you're working on textures, right? You're doing some new versions of textures for the UI. I'm pushing code that is going to force you to recompile the engine. From your point of view, I'm not touching your textures. I'm not doing anything on that vicinity. So why should I prevent you from pushing that work that is completely disconnected by forcing you to getting my changes? Does that make sense? Because this is completely orthogonal, right? Yeah. You can keep working, you can keep pushing textures, you can keep pushing models or whatever, because it's very frustrating when you have, and again, this has degrees, right? But usually the more pressed you are for time, the worse these things affect you, right? So you need to really get something done. All of a sudden, you're forced to get latest, and you have a conflict in the engine, a compile in the engine, and now you have to wait 20, 30 minutes. And this is not fun, right? You just get angry. It's one of those that you just, hit the table, get up, and go get a coffee. And that's the thing. Like, if the tool should be there to allow me to work, giving me a clear assessment of what's happening, right? We still know we're still on 2. I just have the things that I committed already because they're on 4 and I have the data locally. So I might as well track the things that you pushed are there. If in this case, free, instead of adding a new file, if in fact we had changed the archignore, I wouldn't be able to do this because now there's a conflict. So then
when the conflict would happen?
When I try to commit, it's going to say like, you need to get latest.
Oh, okay.
And then you get latest, and then you have a conflict. And then you need to do that thing. I had planned to show you this way, but we already showed like the conflict part. And so then you have to choose, okay, do I want his, ours, or, this kind of stuff.
Okay. Now this makes sense. Okay.
Yeah.
I thought that you can have like sort of conflicted files in this like superposition state. And then like, okay. But this also addresses one of the issues that Casey had with Git as well, that like when I say push the changes, just push the goddamn changes, and don't like force me to do some menial tasks when it doesn't matter, because I know that I didn't commit touch these files. So
but there's a difference with my version and his, right? Because his, when he was talking about, he could push things that actually have conflicts. You know what I mean? In Arc, what this would mean is that you actually do a shelf. Like, you cannot commit, because to commit, you need to solve the conflict.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, you're right. Means like trunk is always conflict resolved, like path. And if you want to do like push something that has conflicts, but still you want to do it with your version, would be to shelve it. And then anyone can go and take the shelf shelved files and check them out, meaning they will get only the files that are changed, not like switch a branch.
Yeah.
Okay.
And this is one of those things that I think people that just aren't in games don't really realize it. And it's also part of the, my guess is that this shelving concept also came about because Perforce doing branches is not a simple task. You don't just right-click branch, right? Perforce doesn't have this kind of simplicity. Like you have the system, the build manager or whatever, create the branch for you. It's not even a branch because they have old school branches that are just super slow and super heavy. And then they had this new thing. It's probably like 15 years old or 20 or whatever, you know? But it's the streams. And with streams, they allow you to do all amounts of crazy stuff that, for example, at the moment, I'm not even considering doing with Arc, right? Like a stream can basically map folders from different projects and stuff like this. It's just, to me, it becomes an overkill of complexity, right? At least for now, we'll see in the future, but at the moment, I don't see it as a valid thing. But still, this allows you, and another thing is that, you know, it's good that you can just, because like I was saying, sometimes I need to work on files that other people are actively working on. So let's say that I set up my scene in a certain way to debug it. If I'm now forced to get latest, even though there's no conflict, now it may come that there's a new scene. So now I have to, one of two things, revert the other guy's scene, but I need to remember that I cannot commit mine later, because then I'm, you know, because if I choose mine and then later I commit it, he lost his work, right? But, or I need to, you know, revert his, revert mine, get his, change things, and then still remember not to commit, right? And maybe this is a good time to speak about a feature.
Of course.
So,
of course.
Because of this in Perforce, you tend to go, a lot of people that I worked with did this too. You create a special change list and you call this change list something like do not commit. And you put files in this change list that you actively don't want to push. So Arc has something that is based, it's inspired by Jonathan Blow, right? Because Jonathan Blow, a few years back, I saw that he had a SVN pre-commit hook or something like this that basically says if you have no check-in in the file, then the commit will fail. The commit will abort, right? Mm-hmm. So Arc, now with this new version, it's not fully working yet, but you have this thing that you can just go here, and by default, it's hash no commit. And what happens is that by default, you flag that the file has been identified as this should not be committed. This is still not fully working, but the idea is that, you know, now when I go to commit, and this is purely client side, so you can change this you know, keyword to whatever you want. But in the client side, it would not allow me to push, right? It's going to be, oh, you cannot commit because you have files that you've said that you don't want to commit. And
so this is not like ignoring stuff for the long term. It's more like a short term thing. Like I want to embrace the code from myself, forgetting about this. So as long as I will not fix this file will not be committed.
Yes. And this is useful. For example, something that I use a lot is I have this instruction that I go break when I'm coding. Then I do this instruction that is break next line. And what happens is when it hits this instruction, it launches the debugger and it tells the debugger to connect on the next line. So it basically puts a breakpoint on the next line and it connects to it, right? So I can debug something. I can run without the debugger, but when this triggers, it happens. But I don't want this to live forever. I want this for my debug session, or maybe there's like some kind of default variables that I just want to comment or change, or some code path that I want to comment, logs that I want to add. So I can just put something and then just add this as in part of the comment to not forget about it. And then it's going to prevent me from committing this. Because sometimes it's going to happen that you're just going to forget and then you commit and it's there, right? And this works for text files, but it also has a version that you can just set it. If you right click on a file, you can just go set no commit. And now when you hover it, it's going to say it has commit in the file. So it was put there specifically in the file, and also explicit, because I explicitly said, right click, no commit. And then you can clear it. And, if I just go here and revert this, it should go away because it doesn't have that anymore, right? So I just thought that's a cool thing.
Also, shout out to 10x editor and author Stuart Lynch. Awesome guy.
True,
and awesome
true.
editor.
Should have mentioned that too. Feel bad now. This is my basically has been my Notepad++ replacer for a long time now. And I use also 10x for Unreal Engine stuff because it's just so much faster to do stuff. It still needs to improve some things. A lot of the things have to do with just complexity with C++ stuff, but it's much faster to find stuff and whatever. But yeah. So what else? So far we've been focusing on text files.
Yep.
So now let's say that we want to go into, let's just get here latest so that we're matched. Let's say that we want to work with binaries. So the first thing, this is something that is not working at the moment, but it's going to be working hopefully soonish for the next build, because I now have this distinction of is it binary, is it not binary. So for now, files to be automatically locked. So you can always lock a file, right? I can just right click, even though this is not a contentious file, there are potentially reasons why I may want to lock this file so nobody else can by mistake commit it. Let's say that you have some important settings, you're getting close to a launch, you don't want anybody to override them by mistake. You can just go here, lock the file, right? And you have this information here that the file is locked. It says there the lock is by Nunu, and you have this little icon. Here the file is grayed out because you don't actually have changes, but you're locking it, right? So it's still in a workspace change list. And on the other guy, you're going to see that it has like a symbol saying that somebody has lock, it's not you. And, the lock belongs to, but for now, let's just remove this so you can explicitly do it. But generally what you do is you add arc locks, right? It's the same kind of thing as the ignore. It's just this is telling you what files, what are the rules for files to locking, right? So in this case, it's just a bunch of extensions that if you find these extensions, automatically lock the file. So let me go here. Let me just grab this image. Let me put it here.
Automatically lock the file when?
When the file gets changed. So
okay.
Remember, in Perforce, you require these extensions that whenever you're going to edit, for example, a blueprint in Unreal, it goes, this is an exclusive checkout file. I need to request the checkout, get it, and then I can change the read-only flag, right? So Arc just doesn't do this kind of stuff. So at the moment, I'm just going to commit this stuff. So let me just get latest. So you have now the locks and you have the file. So now if I edit the file, right? And I just do something here, right? When I save, Arc is going to see again, like any other file, that the file was changed. See here, it's marking it as binary. It has like a little symbol there. And you can see content is binary and it's locked by Nunu, right? And now let's say that I want to edit the file here, right? So I'm just going to do something on the file. And the file is also changed. And see, you have now a different icon. It's a lock with a timer. So basically you're waiting for the lock. The lock belongs to Nunu, but you're in the queue to push it, right? So now if you want to commit this, it's going to fail, right? It created a shelf change list, right? Change list 6. It sent stuff to the server. When it's going to commit, it's saying this will be improved eventually. This kind of messaging. I know that enum error. Although commit locked by another is pretty clear. But anyway, eventually this would be some proper text. But it's telling me here, I shelved it, but I couldn't commit it because you don't have the lock. And so here now you have a few tools. So in Unreal, first of all, not Unreal, in Perforce, you don't have this concept. This is like when I say like Arc gets some concepts from other version controls and then builds what I think they should be, right? So in Perforce, you just have this concept of the exclusive lock. One person has it or nobody has it. In Arc, you have this concept of the queue. And so a few things can happen. One is if this guy just clears the lock, right? The lock will immediately go to this guy. If this guy wants... Yeah. You know what I mean? Because what happens in Perforce? You have a file that is exclusively checked out, but maybe you don't need that file. You're just, because you were debugging, it's checked out automatically. Well, not automatically, you actually need to click it, but you're forced to kind of check it out because otherwise you need to do write only, whatever. So now let's say that I really want this file. So what happens is I'm going to try to use it. Oh, this is checked out by Łukasz. So I need to, ping Łukasz in the chat and be like, hey, do you need this file or can you send it to me? And if the guy doesn't need it, he goes, oh, no, I'm going to revert it. So what's happening there is a person will have to go revert the file. The file is in the server now without any locks. And then you're going to have to proactively lock the file. If somebody comes in between, they'll take the lock. Yeah. Right? So Arc just has this system of queue. So whenever somebody's in the queue, he will get it automatically after. And then you can do also certain things like, let's say I really need it. I can right click and I have some options here. And let's say that by default, I'm just going to say lock. Yeah. And I'm in this waiting state. I can right click and I can just go request lock ownership. When I send it, he gets a little notification here that tells him like, hey, Nunu wants this file. You can accept or reject. And you can just go, no, I need the file, reject. Yeah, you keep it. And here you get the notification, the guy didn't give you the lock. If you're an admin or manager, then you have tools that you can use. So one is you can remove all locks. So it just goes in and clears everything. The other one is you can take the lock. So you can forcefully take the lock for yourself, right? And this guy loses it.
Yeah.
The same way, you can also give the lock. If you have the lock, you can also give the lock to somebody else, right? So you can, if you're a manager, you can force take for yourself or somebody. But if you're the owner of the lock, you can also give it willingly, right, to somebody else, right? And this guy doesn't have it. And here, for example, I can just revert now. And this guy should now be able to commit because he has the lock, right? And it's committed. This guy has a new version. Boom. Make sense?
Nice.
How are we on time? Because
well, the
this is all
recording
going
is
to
over
be cut.
The recording is over 2 hours now. It's more like so there's a demo to finish, and there's a little bit of talk like how Arc works underneath, what would be the challenges of Arc, how do you like Jai and stuff like that, that I'd like to touch on. So you need to tell me, is there something, because right now we've got quite fair view of does it look like to use Arc, both on the GUI management, differences between Git and Perforce, locking files, unlocking them, lock queues, trunk-based development. What are the features that you'd like to also show?
So I'll just go very fast and show you how branches are handled, right?
Okay.
The idea is to be, because again, just because you're trunk-based, I don't want to make it hard for doing branches whenever you need to do branches, right? So you can just, I can just also show tags very fast. So you can just go here to tag, V1, and now you have a tag there and you can remove it. Or, when you go to change list, you can just go V1, right? Anyway, just quick and dirty explained. So to branch, you just right click on wherever you want to branch and you go here to the option branch, you just give it some name and you have the option of just creating the branch or actually branch and switch. So you'll see here that there's a new triangle thing here. Triangle it means a start of a branch. So you have a new branch here. The orange branch just appeared. This guy, the white is still on the blue branch, right? And here the white is on the orange branch. So this guy is on this branch. Here you see it's sigma test. This guy is sigma dev. Sigma, it's funny. So now let's say that I'm going to make some changes. Yeah. So bread. I'm going to commit. And you're going to see like this guy is now progressing along this, right? The other guy is getting the information, but he's on latest. Like get latest doesn't do anything, right? Nothing's happening here. You can then, so let's say that, eventually you want to merge. So I'll bypass that thing with the conflict, because now if I had changes and I wanted to merge, then you would have the conflict and then you need to decide what you want to do. But let's say that now, I don't have any local changes with this. I just want to merge. So to merge a branch, you just select, you need to be on the branch that you want to merge to, which generally, you always need to do this because you may need to solve problems and whatever. I don't think anybody allows you to merge without being in that branch. So you need to be on that branch, and then you can choose all up to the change list you want to merge, right? So let's say if you had 7, 8, 9, 10, it would be changes from 7, 8, 9, 10, or cherry pick. So cherry pick is useful when you just have, by some chance, in a bunch of change lists, you just need something that is only one of them, so you can just pull without pulling everything else, right?
Yeah.
It's rarely used, but again, it's one of those things that it's useful when you need it, right? And a lot of times you will need it. So when I just go here all up to 7, it's going to get, because there's no conflicts, right? It just brings that file here, right? Now I have here the bread. It doesn't have changes, but now I have here, by milk, by bread, and it has this informing here of the merge, right? So you have there that it has merges, it has 7 merged. And so when you commit, it's going to bring this, and you have the information here, but you also will see visibly here, right? And because now I'm on 8 and I merge 7, 7 is white because I got the changes from 7, right? If I didn't, then this guy would be dark, right? I don't know if you noticed before, it was dark before I merged it because I didn't have it.
Yeah, just like the dark on the 8 on the right-hand side,
yes.
right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So yeah, now if I, add just something here, if I just commit, right, I bypassed 8 and it's dark. So, and by the way, this is all kind of customizable. You can kind of go, it has here some admin tools, like you can go and create projects, create users, or you can, for example, edit these branches, right? You can just do whatever you want here. Test, no, actually it's called staging, right? And this just propagates through everybody. It has things like server configuration where you can just configure certain things. So for example, let's say that you want to whitelist a specific IP, yeah, something like this. And you have a whitelisted IP, and it has admin log. So everything that is important is in this admin log. So here it's, for example, Nuno was created, Sigma was created, Dev was created, Łukasz was created, added the tag. All of this is like stored in this. And if you select it, eventually this will have some better visualization, but it gives you this kind of stuff. The name went from test to staging, the color went from this to that.
I now better understand when you were like, we need centralization. We don't like decentralized Git. Now I understand like what you meant by this more, because like in a way, like everybody works with Git in a centralized fashion because of this remote stuff, but you don't have this ability to just say, hey, you have like color green for everybody. And now when you have 100 people working at the same project, you can go from computer to computer. Everybody's on the same project and say, hey, green, don't touch that. Green, don't touch that, stuff like that. Like you have the centrally managed, you can also do the admin log and configuration.
That you take for granted, but that's the thing, like a tool is meant to help you do things better, right? So anything that the tool can do to help you, it's good, right? Like, for example, the fact that I can just rename branches and it just seamlessly goes across, right? I don't need to worry about renaming things or whatever. Now, I just wanted to show maybe one final thing, because I think I've covered like basically, there's a video, but I'll just link you the video because at the moment I don't have here the Git import, but it's actually, in my opinion, a very good Git import tool that I just did if you want to bring stuff from Git. And so, oh, look, this is also a cool thing. Before we do that, when you're doing very complex projects, sometimes it's very hard to know what is being ignored, what is not being ignored. This allows you to just go gather the ignored data, and if you hover, it tells you what's happening, right? It's like, okay, .arc is always ignored. This guy is not ignored. This guy is not ignored. .arc server is always ignored, right? It gives you this kind of stuff. So let's say that you would go now and we want to ignore every PNG, right? The guy disappeared from there, right? And it's marked as like being deleted. And here the color actually is not updating. Let's just refresh it. And it's telling you like, this got added. What is the power that this gives you? Is that now if I go here to the bottom, I can go actually, if it is arc GUI.png, add it back, right? Because when you have ignores, you have to do this. I ignore, but then I revert, but then I ignore again. And here you're going to see it first was ignored by .this, but then this ignore was reverted, right?
You went a long way to have this, like, this particular thing annoyed me so much. I will have a list of things, rules that have been applied.
But that's the thing, like, when you need it, it's so difficult. Yeah. It's so difficult to figure out what's happening because usually these files are like tons and tons of lines and you miss a little thing and, you know, just anyway. So I know that these are struggles that, you know, I've went through. So I just want that there's tools to help you with all of these things. Another thing that it has, for example, is here integrity check because people may be worried about losing data or whatever with the server. So every time you do an upgrade version, it automatically does this on the server, but you can also just select it and go run. And here it's very fast because you just have very little data, but it opens up all the data in the server. This is running in the server, by the way. You're running it from the client, right? That's again, GUI first approach always. You're running it from the client, but this is actually sending it to the server. The server does it and the server reports the results. And so it opens up all the change lists that were committed, gets their data, decompresses it, hashes it, checks that it matches what you said, what was the hash when you saved it, and then it passes or fails, right? It just gives you this thing. So just want to find one final thing, because the whole point of Arc and big projects and stuff like this is that I want it to be fast. So at the moment I have here a binary that's 2.2 gigs. I'm just going to move it over to the client, and that's it, right? It's hashed, it's ready to commit, right? If I revert back, it's gone. And this may seem like it's simple, but when you have something like this boy over here, this is Unreal project, Unreal 5.6. This is like 200 plus 1,000 files and folders. So I'm just going to grab this boy, bring it here. And yeah, it takes a little bit, you know, takes a few seconds, but Arc's already working on it, right? It's already giving you like a bunch of things that it's detecting. Oh, this is new, right? It's checksumming and it's telling you here, look, I'm checksumming these things and it's telling you a progress. How long is it going to take, right? So it's allowing you to see, and everything tries to be responsive, right? It tries to be like usable, right? And this is the kind of stuff that if you do something like this without focusing on doing the GUI version first, it's going to be very hard for you to wrap around the CLI tool and get data like this, right? Yeah. And that's why it's
because it would be like git add dot, and then you would freeze and have no control back.
Yeah. And so at the moment, like, it's taking a while because the data is like it's cold, right? So it took like 62 seconds, a minute. So let me just revert this. Well, I can just leave this file here. Actually, let's revert this file. just so that we have the changes of the Unreal only. So you have here 223,826 files, right? The whole thing is here. Eventually there's going to be something with, that you can filter and whatever. These are things that are planned, right? That I'm going to do to improve the usability of these things. But again, this is all here, right? Like you can just use it if you need to. So let's say that I'm going now to just commit this. Oh, so wait a second. Before I'll show you. So now that the data is not cold, right? If I just move it out, again, moving this amount of files that are new takes a bit for it to trigger it, right? Because it has to do with some processes that I didn't time slice yet. So that's why it chugs a bit at the start. But the files are gone. And now I can just go here in Unreal Engine again, put it back. And now it's going to be considerably faster because now things are cached by the OS. So, Arc itself is much, much faster. You're not that dependent on loading things from disk, right? And by the way, everything that you're seeing here so far is single threaded. This app is still not multi-threaded. I'm focusing on the way I like to work is I like to make sure if something is not fast single threaded, it will not really be fast multi-threaded, right? That's my approach to it. So see, now it just took 27 seconds to do the whole thing. And now if I go and I commit Unreal Engine, again, giving you some breakdown of what's happening, the time elapsed, you're going to get here some graphs with the data being sent and back and forward and how many uploads it still needs to do. So yeah, now it's uploading and it's telling you, look, you have this amount of bytes that needs to go through of this. And this is extremely helpful. So many times you're doing a download or a commit and you don't know how much data is going and you just see a progress bar that you don't know, is this just a lot of data? Is just this a slow connection? Is this just a lot of files? I don't know, right? But here, committing, so getting like the source, under 2 minutes you can get from a cold start, right? So here it took 42 seconds to shelve, then commit is basically for free, right? Because it's already in the server, right? And you have here the thing. And
nice.
Now, because the files already exist and everything has an ID and whatever, also the cache is much better. So now when I move it out, it's going to be much faster, right? See, it already is there. And now let's say that I go here and edit something deep. Let me just go in some of this. So let's say here. And here I'm just going to put like, right? So I'm just going to save this and I'm going to now bring this Unreal Engine again.
So you now took out the directory and then you took back with a changed file.
Yeah.
That was somewhere in the...
in the middle, right? And at the moment you see that it's computing the checksums, right? It's already at 50%. And actually now we're going to see a lot of changes here because of the locks. Yeah, it's going to appear a lot of stuff here, but we can just revert the locks. So yeah, when it's finished, see, there's the change. There it is. And this is just, all these files is because of the locks, because these are files that are going to be logged, and because it saw that the files were added, so it automatically logs them and whatever, right? I can just go here and just revert, not revert, I can just go unlock, and basically that's the change there. Like something like this, back then when I was doing my tests, something like this that in like under 2 minutes you can do in Arc, takes like 12 minutes in Perforce and Git. It took like 30 minutes in SVN. I tried it and like around 30 minutes I just killed it because I was done with it. Git with GUIs also just hangs